This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. I'm your host, Tim Dolbear, coming to you live from Calexico Studios in Austin, Texas. Before we get started, I want to give a big thank to our sponsors who help make this possible. FrontEndAudio.com, your ultimate pro audio dealer. The Blackbird Academy, hands-on training for studio and live sound. Great River Electronics, just the best gear on the planet. And Source Connect by Source Element, which brings us all possible. All right, well, first up for today, let me give you the rundown of who's coming on to the show in the following weeks. May 2nd, we have Michael Romanowski. He's going to be joining us again. He's a world-famous mastering engineer and just an incredible guy. And myself and him will be speaking about mix bus compression. I'll be talking about mix bus compression from the mixing engineer side. He'll be talking about mix bus compression from the mastering side, which is the other way around of thinking about mix bus compression. The week after that, we have Mark DeGeorge in here from Solid State Logic, and he'll be with us discussing all the latest happenings going on with Solid State Logic. So that'll be cool. And then some other people coming up in May, like hopefully we have Keith Olson. He's signing on to do a show with us, and a few other people like Joe Palmisio. So it's going to be fun. Lots of stuff coming up. So today's question comes in from Michael Rodriguez. Question for me. His question is, you have mentioned using a reverb called Tim's Water Closet. What is that? Okay, well, Tim's Water Closet is this very odd, strange preset of a couple plugins that I have. That it all starts back when I had the studio in Southern California in an industrial complex. We had a tiled bathroom right off the live room, which sounded fantastic to keep the door cracked open with a couple of mics in there and just let it get the natural sound of the drums coming in. And it's just had this tone that you could tuck underneath the drums, and it was fantastic. So when we moved, I knew I was going to be missing that, so I set out to try to recreate it. And how I did that was I found the right reverb that sounded the closest to it, had the right kind of overall tone to it and densities and things like that. But it wasn't quite perfect until I added a compressor after the reverb plug-in. So the reverb actually was being compressed. It made it kind of a different density, made it a different envelope to how the beginning of the verb sounded and how the end of the reverb let go, you could say. Having a compressor on it changes its envelope filter. And once I did that, I was instantly able to nail the sound of this little tiny tile bathroom for drums. And it's called Tim's Water Closet because it's a bathroom. So that was the cool title we came up with for it. So thank you for your question. Any other questions that you guys have? Any questions, just find me on Facebook and send me messages on there, or you can always email me at tim@timdolbear.com. So also check out the websites while you're there, intertalkradio.com/sound experience. That's our radio show site, and you can always find me at timdolbear.com. So let's get on with today's guest. So today's guest is the co-director and instructor, or as I like to refer to him, the professor of audio at the Blackbird Academy, Mark Rubel. Mark, how's today find you?
Tim, it's been a fantastic day. How are you?
It's been a hectic day, but all's good, and I've really been looking forward to having some time to just chat with you and pick your brain, because even though we get to go out to lunch every time I'm there, teaching at Blackbird, I just feel like we never get to dive super deeply into some of these things. So this is fantastic having you on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for asking me on.
Cool. So I think the first thing is, can we, myself and anyone else listening, can we get a background on you? How did you find yourself going up through the ranks, being a bass player and a musician, going through all the studio stuff, and now you found yourself as a main instructor at the Blackbird Academy? Can you give us a little background as your journey?
Well, I've always been interested in music since I was a little kiddo, and also interested in technology and science and literature and film, all of which kind of come together in the recording world. I started playing bass when I was 12, which is I think, 1863, something like that. And, eventually we started doing home recordings, and I ended up in real studios. And I think that first moment that I walked into Silver Dollar Recording Studio in Urbana, Illinois, the angels sang, the skies parted, and, it was just the most amazing place I'd ever been. And, seeing all the gear and the flashing lights and so forth, I was smitten. Studied all sorts of liberal artsy things in college, played in all different kinds of bands. And then when I got out of college, I worked as a booking agent, and we started a recording studio in the same town, or Champaign, Urbana, Illinois, which is a campus town. And ran that studio until I moved to Nashville about 3 years ago. An amazing journey. We started with a 4-track reel-to-reel tape machine and a UA 610 console that we bought from Bill Putnam, Bill Putnam Sr., the president of URI. And, we started with a 4-track machine and a 12-channel console and just kept building from there, and built, a studio that became part of this fantastic music community in the town where I lived. And then in 2012, we started the Blackbird Academy, and I quit all my jobs and sold the building and moved down here to because of this incredible opportunity to create a recording school and be able to teach in the best studio in the world. And so I find myself here, and now I'm getting ready to reopen my studio, Pogo Studio. We bought Steve Earle's old house and studio, and we're getting ready to fix everything up and put it in there.
Wow. So did you bring everything from your studio, or did you just piece out parts that you wanted and decided you were going to rebuild when you got there?
Eventually it'll all be here. Some of it is still in storage in Champaign, but, I have the console and all the racks and microphones and instruments down here. And the studio is actually a little bit bigger than the one I had in Illinois. It's a good-sized facility, 3 isolation booths and a big room and a good-sized control room. And it was built from the ground up as a recording studio, all non-parallel and all that. It was, the consultant on it was Michael Cronin, who designed Blackbird, and he's renovating Muscle Shoals right now, the 3614 Jackson Highway. He built Mutt Lange's castle Castle Studio in Switzerland, and so forth. It's going to be nice. It's got quite an interesting and unique collection of stuff.
Very, very cool. Now, you mentioned console. Let's dive into that for a minute. What kind of console?
I have an API Domidio console, which is custom built by a guy named Frank Domidio. Frank Domidio was, I believe, the chief engineer of Radio Havana before Castro came in. He moved to San Francisco after Castro came to power and started building custom recording consoles for Wally Heider. The console I have is one of the few remaining Domidio consoles. I mean, as far as I know, there are 2 at Sunset Sound. Jack White has one. Prince had one. At some point, Steve Vai had one. And I've got one. I don't know of many others. Actually, I don't know of any others. So mine was custom built for Fantasy Studios in Berkeley, and it was built to make Creedence records in 1970, at which time it cost $100,000. It was a custom-built, handmade thing, built mainly from API, really from API parts. It has API EQs, mostly original 550s, and all the amplifiers in it. It's just got racks and racks of amplifiers, or original API 312 cards, some of them with custom transformers. Those API 312 cards on everything, including TalkBack and the Echo Sends, and everything. So it's a completely incredibly good sounding console. I really mean it when I say it's probably the best sounding console I've ever heard in my life.
What do you liken it to?
Well, it's like an API, which is a sound that I love. It's basically a vintage API, but Domidio had I think he had the gain staging down a little bit better, and he put big transformers on the input and output, so it's balanced all the way through. And so I'd say it's like an API, but even more bold and muscular and solid sounding. Deep low end, just very kind of hard hitting, clear sounding console.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. What other piece of outboard gear did you bring with you?
Oh, well, I have a ridiculous amount of outboard gear. I probably have 65 compressors or something like that. I mean, it's just racks and racks of stuff. What I say is, jokingly, is the reason I hang out with John McBride is it's sort of like standing next to somebody fatter than you in a picture so they can make you look skinny. So, at Blackbird we have everything.
Yes.
Several of everything. But just a ton of stuff. I put the stuff that I use more frequently close to me, but it's, 4 Blackface 1176s, an LA2A, a UA 175, a pair of LA3s, a pair of 160 VUs, a pair of 165s, a bunch of old Gates tube compressors, 4-plate reverbs, just a pile of stuff. And 300 microphones. There's a 9-foot Baldwin grand piano. There's a 6-foot grand. There's a B3 and a clavinet and a mellotron and a modular Moog and 80 guitars and 20 snare drums and a sitar and a harp and a steel drum. And just, it's a big arsenal of paintbrushes. And kind of like Blackbird in that it's not a collection. It's really a working arsenal of tools.
Man, that's cool. I bet you can't wait to get that set up.
I'm excited, and it's been fantastic getting the school off the ground and getting it going, and that will always be my top priority. But it's nice, it's important to let all that stuff be used and help, to make music. It's also, I'm ready to, I'm starting to get back into record making. I'm mixing some records for people, and I'm excited to do it. And I also think it's professional use.
Oh, we're out of time. Out of time on this. Hold that thought. We'll be right back with Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Thank you for listening to WS Radio. Improve your business and your life with useful information from experts and thought leaders. WS Radio is radio with ROI.
The richness of your life is reflected in the shimmering elegance found at Diolune Design. One-of-a-kind jewelry and pieces from Cynthia Dillon in silver and gold help to express your unique personality. The flowing designs of her creations will empower the way you move throughout your day. Join us online at DIOLUNdesigns.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
In the military, things can change in an instant. At Navy Mutual Aid Association, we understand because it's our life too. That's why our dedication to serving the life insurance needs of our military veterans and their families is unrivaled. Navy Mutual offers superior life insurance protection without military service restrictions and limitations. A single focus on providing the peace of mind military families are looking for. That's what we do. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve. Call 800-628-6011 or go to NavyMutual.org.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. Vin Village connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. Vin Village is where wine lovers connect. Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. I'm your host, Tim Dolbear, coming to you live from Eclectica Studios in Austin, Texas, where we got our technical issues all sorted out, so we are off and running into the next segment, and hopefully you can hear me a little bit clearer and better than you did before. So, Mark, we're talking about outboard gear.
Yes. One of my favorite topics.
Absolutely, and now I can focus a little bit more because in the background I was juggling 15 things with a technical issue, but I'm here and now I'm able to sit on the couch with you and discuss the good stuff. So let's talk preamps. Now, you had mentioned obviously that the board has very much API built right into it. What's some of the outboard stuff for a different flavor that you like to dive into?
You know, it's a funny thing, and it's kind of a philosophy for me, although in some ways a difficult one to defend, which is it sounds so good, I tend to just use the preamps that are in the console. And when I say it's a philosophical thing, it's something I think, you know, so many of the classic records have a sound. And I think there's something to be said for recording everything with the same preamp to kind of give a record a cohesive sound. Of course, I don't extend that argument to we should use the same microphones for everything or the same compressors for everything. So as I said, it's a little hard to defend. But
right.
You know, I love the way this thing.
Last week we had Ross Hogarth on, and that's one of the things he said. And it's interesting to have you say that too, because that's two people in a row now who have said something that's kind of been different than what I've been practicing all along, which is using different preamps for different things, for different flavors, because it will add to, as you mix the different colors in, it makes a fuller sounding recording when everything's put together, as opposed to a console is going to give everything that same type of signature and give an overall cohesiveness to it. Kind of two different ways of thinking on it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course it depends on the console. And it depends on how that flavor complements whatever music it is that you're working on.
Absolutely.
But I love that approach. I have other preamps. I've got some Summit Tube ones. I've got Ampex 351 and 350 electronics from tape machines that have been converted to make microphone preamps. I've got 11 preamps from the old 610 console that we had, the Universal Audio console. These are the line amps, where they're 1008s and 1016s, so they're not 610s, but they're the little racks that you'd plug in that are really cool, and they've got EQs on them. So for that kind of sound, I like to do that. And occasionally, I'll use an 1176 as a preamp because it has 36 dB of gain. Sometimes I just plug a mic straight into that and then crank the output.
Oh, interesting. I remember reading about Paul McCartney in one of his early recordings in the 70s, obviously not his earliest recordings by any means, but a picture of him recording at I guess it was a home studio or a vacation home studio that he had, and he was recording with his microphone plugged straight into the back of his tape machine. No outboard gear of any sort. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and, that was a nice way to record on the old Ampexes, for example, which is why I love that sound. I also have an Ampex MX10 mixer. It's a 4-channel, 4x1 tube mixer. And those things, if you get the ones that have the good transformers, really sound amazing. We just did a vintage recording workshop at Webster University in St. Louis.
Yes.
Kind of showing the students how to record minimally. We had a 4-piece band, 6 microphones, an Ampex mixer, an RCA mixer, recorded live to mono tape with 2 compressors and 1 EQ. And it just sounds like a record. It's actually such a revelation even to us who kind of know the punchline, which is you can make great sounding records with not much gear. We still kind of stand around and marvel at it, of course. It takes skill to do that. My friend John Pines did the engineering. But that's, that's, so many people are looking for that sound of vintage recordings and trying to follow that. It is amazing how good that older stuff sounds.
Yeah, there's a cohesiveness to it. We've talked on the show many times about having a band track together and how you get that natural energy and the musicians playing off of each other. And suddenly there's a passion that comes across, and the listener is drawn in and attracted to it because of the personalness that's going into the playing. and into the recording that you don't necessarily get when you have separate musicians and studio musicians and they've never met each other and the guitar player's only known the song for 15 minutes while he got the part ready to be tracked. It's a different kind of disconnect at that point.
Yeah, there was really I think people underestimate one of the huge turning points in recording, which was the difference from capturing a performance to manufacturing an appearance of a performance. You know,
right.
If you look at a big room like RCA Studio A here in Nashville, which was made to enhance a live performance, and all the things that go into that, the musicianship, listening to each other without headphones, without isolation, having to, play louder or softer depending on whether you're soloing or accompanying. And all those things went away when isolation came in and headphones, multi-track recording.
Right.
It really had a bigger impact on music than I think everybody recognizes.
Absolutely, I agree. Now back to all the outboard gear and such that you were talking about in your list. And I know you see students come up through the ranks that run into this, and I know you know some heavy-hitting professionals that run into the same thing. How do you keep mentally focused from plugging everything in just because you have it? An example would be mastering engineers that I've gone and visited to teach them Sequoia. I get to their studio, and a lot of times they have a lot of outboard gear, and they have your audio running through everything just because they can. They figure they're charging you money. They have these expensive toys. They want to use everything, whether the record needs it or not. They're going to plug in everything.
Absolutely. Well, just because we can doesn't mean we should. Is probably something we could engrave and hang over the door or the window in our studios. I call it processing an answer to need. I don't ever start with something plugged in just out of habit. I listen to the mix, I get it in place, and then if there's something that I need to fix or that I want to deal with that I'm not going to deal with through simple things like volume or panning, that's when I reach for an EQ or a compressor. But I don't start with a template that has 52 things on it, because then you're rethinking your original thought. I mean, we made decisions, hopefully, when we recorded it, and we built it the way we wanted it. Or even if we're mixing somebody else's stuff, they presumably have made decisions and crafted it as close as they want. So for us to just reflexively go, oh, I was taught, or I always use an 1176 on this, I think is a mistake. So, part of development of the skills also involves the development of enough discipline to know what to do and what not to do and when to stop. And in many cases, the second part is more important than the first.
Absolutely. The thing that you're going into with the new studio, is it going to be a lot of analog based as far as recording mediums, or are you going to keep it all digital?
Eventually I'll fix up my Studer A80 Mark IV, which is a 24-track 2-inch machine. Someday it would be a dream to get a 16-track headstock for it, because that's a fun medium. Speaking of discipline, that's a nice size medium, 16 tracks. You can give yourself some flexibility, but you have to make decisions while you're recording. But to begin with, it'll be a hybrid system, meaning analog, microphones, consoles, etc., to Pro Tools.
Great. Are you into mixing, or do you have other people do mixing for you?
Both. Often my own projects I end up recording, tracking, mixing. Currently I'm mixing some projects for other people, which I'm really enjoying. And because my console isn't up yet, I've been doing them in the box. And that's really been an interesting education for me, and I've really been enjoying it.
Expand on that.
Well, I love what everybody loves about it, which is the recallability, that I can mix until my ears cloud over, and then I can close the computer and come back to it the next day or the next hour and go, oh, obviously, here's the solution. This is too loud, or this is going the wrong direction, or there's too much reverb, and that sort of thing. I still love the visceral physicality of having faders under my fingers and being able to sculpt it and mold it in that way. Mm-hmm. But I really like the precision of it, and I find that if you get your workflow correct mixing in the box, it's a nice way to do the thing that's needed when you're mixing, which is to be able to zoom in and out like a lens, right? You have to be able to take the overall view and go, oh, something doesn't feel right. Why? there's some problem in the mid-range. You zoom in, right? And, okay, what's going on in the mid-range? Oh, the tom-tom is fighting the bass guitar note or whatever. Then go in microscopically, bring up an EQ, fix that, then zoom out. How does that feel now? And I find that works well in the computer.
Take it. One of the things that I remember
there are pitfalls.
Oh, of course. Yeah. One of the things I remember working on analog for multi-track going into a console for mixing was the fact that if I wanted to concentrate on an area, I couldn't just focus in on that area that well. It's stop, rewind, stop, rewind. So you tend to do long passes through it, which can be a plus in some areas unless you're trying to track down a problem issue, in which case a DAW has been fantastic for that, for just setting up a loop point as small as you want and be able to focus right in on that. But I think that being able to play a song from top to bottom where you're forced to listen to it top to bottom while you're mixing really lends itself to the artistic side of it and remembering that it's a song and it's a piece of art and the overall scope of it. So that has been a big learning thing back and forth that I've dealt with for many years is making sure that I don't just section it. So we got about 15 seconds left on this segment.
Well, it's funny because you can make the opposite argument, which is in analog when they were mixing Bohemian Rhapsody without automation, then they had to cut it together so you'd get sudden changes. And sometimes I think people are too static in a workstation where it's just the same all the way through, and they don't mix as a verb. It becomes a static process.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll pick back up on that one when we get right back. So, about 3 minutes of sponsors. Please pay attention to our sponsors. We love them all, and they help make this happen. This is Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. We'll see you back in a minute.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
This is Bill Gruber with BizVid Communications, a Southern California video production leader. We've been honored to sponsor, produce, write, and host many of the fine programs on WS Radio over the years. So we understand how important the internet and your website exposure are. As video producers, we know the tricks and secrets to incorporate video to increase your search engine optimization and business success. Visit bizvidcommunications.com to see what we can do for you. BIZVID communications.com.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience. Big shout out to the rest of our sponsors, which is frontendaudio.com, your ultimate pro audio dealer, the Blackbird Academy, Great River Electronics, and Source Connect by Source Element, which actually makes it able so I can sit in Austin while the radio station sits comfortably in San Diego, and I'm able to talk. So if you don't know about Source Connect and you can use it in the studio, believe me, check it out. Source Connect by Source Element. And we're on today with Professor of Audio from the Blackbird Academy, Mark Rubel, and we're talking about various different things with mixing and equipment, and seeing that you're exposed to so much at the Blackbird Studios and Blackbird Academy, whether it's students coming through underneath your wing or other visiting engineers that are coming into work at the studio, what is the most, or one of the most, or many of the most, issues that you see that are so common with working in the box?
Well, one of them that I really see with the students is just the problem of, the McGurk effect, which is a psychological effect that says that what you see takes precedence over what you hear.
Right.
And that's MCGURK. Look it up on YouTube. Anyway, people mix visually in a workstation, and that's a problem. They're mixing with their eyes, and they're not using, they're not listening, which obviously is what we're intending the final product to have. So they decide something needs to be turned up or down, and they'll spend more time making fancy-looking curves than actually listen to what they're doing. Or they turn something up and it looks like too much on the screen, therefore they compromise and turn it down. Whereas, it just, it needs what it needs, and sometimes you have to exaggerate things, partly because of the mastering process, and just because the things that we're all focused on that seem like a giant deal to us, which, as everybody knows, if you're mixing, you're obsessing over turning something up or down a quarter decibel. I think there's a tendency for it to flatten out everybody's mixes, and a tendency for it to make people timid, which they tend to be anyway. And so I have to exaggerate. I have to, encourage them to be bold and exaggerate their moves. So that's one of the difficulties, I think.
That makes sense. When I moved into, years ago, going into Samplitude. I'd come out of Logic, went into Samplitude around 2002, 2003, and that's when things really started picking up for me about that time frame, and I was starting to do more and more mixing. And I remember at one point I was using the old Waves Renaissance EQ. I used that one a lot at that point back then, and I found myself looking at an EQ curve and saying, "Oh, I can't do that. That's too much of a boost. That's not good." And scolding myself at that point for realizing how I had changed and using my eyes to mix instead of my ears. And from that point on, still to this day, really, all that I use are channel strip plugins that are knobs that don't show any type of curve. In mastering, I'll use the built-in EQ that comes with Sequoia for mastering, which is the graph type, but I'm moving half a dB and 3/4 of a dB and stuff once I've already done the capture back in from the analog EQs. But in actual mixing, I'm only using knobs because I don't want to ever get to the point where I'm mixing with my eyes.
Yeah, that's a problem that goes back to graphic equalizers, where you get people who are paying more attention trying to make professional-looking curves than actually listening to what they're doing. So it's funny. I guess that's one of the other things that happens with workstations is there's a tendency to focus on the details and lose the big picture, because you can mix one thing at a time, and you can bring up a certain number of things. So there's this tendency to stay microscopic, and I think it's a little bit harder for people to sit there and and take in the overall. So I encourage people to close their eyes or turn the screen off and listen to things. There's a little bit too much of this is sort of common to the process of mixing, but many people get it backwards, where they immediately start obsessing over the details, the threshold and ratio of a compressor and so forth, and they don't start with the big picture and then work backwards to make the details serve that vision.
Right. Yep. I think I've gone through that, and we've all gone through that process many times in our lives. Sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one. I had another really good question for you. I was going to stump you. Do you find that this happens also with the pro guys that come through, or do you see it at every level, or are you only seeing that mostly with students and such?
I see it especially with people who are starting out. I think I think there's a difference with people who started on analog consoles, that they have a tendency to be able to do that, to start with the big picture and make everything else work for that. So I think it's an interesting time, because not only is the process, the new process tend to start with the details and work towards the big picture, but it's been interesting, I think, to see in a parallel way how the equipment is, see how to say this, that the equipment has sort of been developed more for people who are starting out, so that a lot of things like plugins actually are more for people who are sort of digital savvy. And it's interesting to see that whole transition between things that are emulations of analog stuff. In other words, for example, the students, their first encounter with 1176 is a virtual one, and it might be a long time before they get their hands on a real one.
Right.
Whereas, so that makes sense to have a plug-in that looks like 1176 if you're a professional that started out with real 1176 and you want something familiar. But I think it's interesting to think that now we're at the time where much of the recording and mixing is being done in a virtual world, and maybe an emulation of a hard piece of hardware isn't the best interface or the best way to get at a mix. So I'm looking forward to seeing innovative interfacing with the mixing process.
How do you think emulations have come along to kind of change directions?
Well, I mean, I think they're doing a better job of emulating things so that they function sort of like the real thing. I would say the compressors are least good in that department, which is just such a complex system. An amplifier that's changing its gain and changing phase at different frequencies and so forth. But I think it's coming along really well. But I think that I'll spare you this really lengthy theory that I have about the lifespan of a technology. But I think that basically digital technology has gotten to sort of its teenage years, where it should be beyond emulating other people, and it should kind of strike on its own and do what it does best and mature and become adult. And I'm looking forward to seeing what shape that will take.
Yes. I've always been upset that the emulation plugins that they do, that they don't add on the extra things that you can do in the digital realm. A channel strip emulation of a Neve console or whoever, yet if you right-click or say command-click on the pan knob, you're not getting a whole stereo resource section that allows you to do various different things that you can do in a digital audio workstation. They simply just have it set up to do what you would do on a console. It seems very limiting considering the medium.
Well, sure, and in the digital world, just doing something like trying to turn a knob with a mouse is irritating. And so I'm kind of looking towards a time where maybe we dance the mix, or we paint the mix, or we put on the virtual reality goggles and sculpt the mix, or conduct it with a baton or something like that. I think it's time for digital to stop just emulating older stuff. We're doing that relatively well, and to get to new methods.
Yep. Okay, then at the manufacturers' meetings that we have at AES, I'm going to keep shouting at them to do that. It almost seems like they want to play it safe at this point. They want to emulate because it's safe.
Right. But again, it's sort of a bottom-up it's sort of a bottom-up process now, where, if in the early days of say, Pro Tools, or other digital workstations, if the people who had access to it were professionals, it makes sense for them to have a virtual console or a virtual, 1176, like I said, because that facilitates their workflow. But for somebody who's starting out, they might be impressed to see something that looks like a Fairchild, so it makes them think they have a Fairchild. But why not? And there are things like the Fab Filter and that sort of thing, which I think are, in terms of the interface and so on, are starting to take advantage of the new world. But I think it's time. I think it's time to move that forward more quickly.
Yeah, a request that I would have for the world, I go on Facebook and I see pictures of beautiful studios and beautiful pieces of equipment, and I can really get into that. But when I see someone post a picture of their screen and their plugins are open and they're, check this out. And it's like, okay, you didn't pay $30,000 for that Fairchild. That just was, came with the software package for $100. So yeah, not the same thing in sound or in a reality, I should say.
Yeah, but it's on the other hand, it's a wonderful process, and it's great that the process of recording has become so democratized. And right. I think one of the things that's really interesting about it is, if you look at somebody like Andrew Sheps, who's one of the greatest mixing engineers on the planet, we now no longer have an excuse. We can't say, well, of course he's mixing great because he's got a Neve and all this stuff. If I only had that, then I could do the same thing. He's basically using the same tools as everyone, which means it's him. Yep. Right? It's his talent and his ears and his brain and his abilities. And it's the same with us. So it means that we shouldn't emulate everyone else. I mean, that's how you start out. But eventually we should strike out on our own and become artists in our own right with our own approach to this process.
Exactly. Let's take that in the next segment, actually. I have a couple questions on that, on developing your own style and signature. Okay, be right back. This is Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. Back in a minute.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Attention business owners. Does it feel like your business owns you? See if you qualify for a free 90-minute business coaching session to help you build a business, not a job. During this free 90-minute strategic consultation, one of our senior coaches will help you map out the best way to grow your company and get your life back. To learn more, go to MauiMasterminds.com/scale now. That's MauiMasterminds.com/scale now.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. MOZEguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Which sandwich is healthy and tasty? Which sandwich can come on bread or in a bowl? Which sandwich comes 51 different ways, so it's always your way? A which sandwich. Stop into our shop in Hazard Center. We're upstairs from the Hazard Center Digiplex. Bring in your movie ticket. We will add a free drink and chips to your sandwich order. Or order online at whichwich.com, and we will have it ready and waiting. WHICH, whichwich.com.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to the last segment of Sound Experience. We are on with Mark Rubel from the Blackbird Academy in Nashville, and we're talking, where we left off with was we were talking about, really it's the ears, not the gear, going back to that type of saying, and how certain mix engineers, how they've developed a sound and how it's them. They really can be working on a Radio Shack piece of equipment. It's still going to sound like them. And so that brings me to a point of how to develop your own style, because obviously anyone can buy $100,000 worth of gear with a small business loan, throw it in a room, and as I always say, just because you have a nice kitchen doesn't mean you know how to cook. So it's all about the person using it. And so developing your own style, your own taste, has a lot to do with going through and trying all the different pieces of gear and finding ones that fit your style and your workflow. And through the years, I've gone through so much gear, and I've landed at the stuff that I like and that fits my palette and fits my work style and my workflow. And I find that to be a really important thing to do, because if I'm developing my own style, if I'm developing my own workflow, it's defining me and my brand. My brand is Tim Dolbear. Everyone can have a studio, but there can only be one Tim Dolbear, just like there can only be one of you. And so developing a uniqueness that defines you is how you get further in this business. I've really believed that that's true, because every professional that I've ever met that's been successful in this business has their own style, has their own workflow, has their own personality that defines their brand being themselves. And so I really encourage people to try everything you can, but don't fall into trends where, you have to have this piece of gear because everyone has this piece of gear. If anything, you should be thinking, if everyone has this piece of gear, perhaps I shouldn't have it, because I want to make sure what I do stands out and has its own flavor that fits what I hear and what I would like to do. Any thoughts on this, Mark?
I thoroughly agree. And I think that we have it on the wall in our classroom. It says it's not the wand, it's the wizard. And I think so to become the wizard, as I alluded to earlier, you have to separate the tools from the process, and you have to make the tools serve the process and not dictate the process, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so, if let's say we're talking about mixing, but really this could apply to recording. What is it that makes each wizard unique? It's their vision. And their vision is something that they develop over a lifetime of listening and thinking. And so, the tools are useful. They give us different colors and paintbrushes to paint with. But we have to know what we're doing before we sit down to paint. And so it's evolving a musical vision, and having an understanding of what we're trying to do, which, to me, we're trying to craft an emotional sensory experience. And so to have a wide range of experience and to have listened to all kinds of music and seen all kinds of art and film and paintings and short stories and poetry and everything else, to understand how people are engaged in a story and how you can keep their attention, how you can evolve things and change things. And then to pick the tools that help you with that. It's a wonderful age now where we can have, virtual plugins that have a lot of the flavors that otherwise would be inaccessible to most people. So, we need to be acquainted with all those colors and flavors, but they're not the end goal. They're the means to that goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some people like to draw with crayons. Some people like to use oils, and you need to find the one that works best for you. In producing, one of the directions that I've always gone during recording that I've developed over the years, that for some reason this reminds me, I'm going to send it out there to all you. It's when I hear a band and they come in to record, it's my job as a producer to not only get great performances, help out with any song type stuff, but to recognize what's unique and different about the act and the artist and do everything I can to exaggerate it and pull that out of them. because that helps define them. And so as a recording engineer, if you're looking to build your own signature sound or your own style of working, like we've been talking about, you need to find out what happens in these recordings that you finish producing, you finish mixing, send out to people, and what they like, and do that again. You need to find what makes you different and what people enjoy and exaggerate that, bring that out, let that blossom and follow down that track. I don't remember which person it was that said it, like Tony Bennett or someone said, find out what the people like and just do it again. And it's really true.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to, our job is to work with these musicians, and sometimes it's up to us to help them recognize and bring up the things that are unique and make them different. It's hard for them to recognize and accept that, because if they're trying to emulate someone else, that feels more safe because someone else has already been successful in doing it. So we have to give them the courage to really be themselves and to do the things that no one else does, which of course is the best way they will succeed. Not just, everyone, again, just like I said with the technologies, everyone starts emulating somebody else. But, that's part of what we do. It's, I think, working with somebody in the studio is very much an educational process. It's also hopefully an inspirational process where you can help them bring things out that they might not have even known they were capable of, and help them to recognize and take ownership of the things that make them unique.
Absolutely. Okay, couple minutes left. Let's switch. What's the best, coolest new toy that you've run across in the last little while?
Well, it's not released
hard
yet.
One. Oh.
And I can't even tell. Let's see. So what's the best newest toy that I can tell you about? That I can tell you about.
Yeah.
Does that include old toys?
Sure. Why not? Yeah. Anything that's fun.
I mentioned that Ampex MX10 mixer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful thing. It's despite what I just said about uniqueness and so forth. When hearing microphones going through that thing, it really it gives you that feeling of recognition, and that there are these moments when you're looking at gear where you go, oh, like the first time you hear a Telecaster through an AC30, it's like, oh, you get this recognition like of long lost friends. So that's how the Beatles did it, and and an old microphone through an MX10. That's the Motown, and it sounds fantastic.
That's cool. So what was the piece of gear for those people who will be listening to this in 3 or 4 months, because it will be released by then? No? Is that going to work? Not going to work.
What'll be?
You can't tell us what it is because it's not out.
It's a plug-in compressor by a very well-known audio figure that really sounds fantastic. And I've been using it on every mix lately, and it just it really does everything that I like to hear on a vocal. It brings up all the good stuff and sort of instantly minimizes all the stuff that I tend to not like sibilants.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, we have a minute left, so I want to use this time to personally thank you for coming on here, and I hope you'll come on other times, as many times as possible, as well as I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks when I'm out there teaching at Blackbird. I think it's on the 18th of May.
Yes,
and we'll have lunch and stuff again.
We love having you with us, and thank you for doing the show. I think it's a public service and a great thing for you to do for the community. So thank you, Tim.
Oh, it's been great. I get to learn so much from everyone who comes on, because I get to ask all the questions that I want to ask all of these amazing engineers, such as yourself, that just get to come on, and I get to pick your brain. So I'm hoping everyone else enjoys that too. So thanks for tuning in. This has been Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. I am super appreciative of you being on here today, Mark. And if you want more information on him, what is the website?
Well, we have theblackbirdacademy.com.
No, for your studio.
A short bio on it. And that is pogostudio.com, which has a lot of coming soon stuff on it.
Cool. And I'll put information on my website as well as the Facebook account. So find us on Facebook. Find me at timdolbear.com. And that's it. It's been fun. This is Sound Experience. I'm Tim Dolbear, signing off from Calexico Studios in Austin, Texas. Now, go make some music.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Progressive Medical.
Hey, this is Heidi Rue, and you know, Progressive Medical Center has literally changed my life and my health, but I'm not the only one. Adele suffered from bone deterioration, bone overgrowth, profound muscle discomfort, physical exhaustion, and mental fog. In fact, the bone deterioration becomes so serious that she had to have back surgery. Well, after the surgery, she still didn't feel well, and so that's when she heard about Progressive Medical Center. Progressive Medical Center discovered that her adrenals weren't working properly, her hormones were out of whack, and the drugs she had been taking were doing more harm than good. Adele came into Progressive Medical Center in a walker, physically and mentally exhausted. But now she's a world traveler. She hikes and walks several miles a day, and it's all thanks to Progressive Medical Center. 770-676-6000. 770-676-6000.
Progressive Medical. This is your life. Live it well.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.